Hi guys, I'm Cadet Bettine. I'm here with Iowa State Army ROTC. I'm going through the end of my MS2 year, moving on to MS3. And today I'll be going over a little class on call for fire, just your basics of what you need to know when you call in a transmission for call for fire. So to begin with, we'll start with the 6 elements of call for fire, and I'll kind of go through these throughout the transmission that we call in. So the 6 elements of call for fire, you got your observer identification, warning order, target location, target description, method of engagement, and method of fire and control. So we're gonna move right into it. So using your map, you're gonna find your grids where you're at, right? So when you're shooting a grid mission, you're gonna wanna know where you are, and obviously you don't know where your enemy is, so you're gonna estimate it using terrain analysis. So using this map, I'd say I was at this tower. I'd use, if my target was up on this hill, I would say, okay, there's a ridge line underneath that I can visibly see. There's a water source, looks like a lake nearby, and then you can kind of put 1 and 2 together of where that grid point would be on this map, right? And then using your map scale and your right triangles, you go through your land nav process and you mark your point on that map. Get your grid, and once you write your grid up, today I'll be doing an 8-digit grid. Then you'll call in your transmission using a sync guards radio. So one thing you're gonna have is a piece of paper nearby you so you can write all this stuff down, because they're gonna give you target numbers and such. And then another thing you're gonna want is a pair of M22 binoculars for when the round impacts, because this is an adjust fire mission. You don't know if you're gonna hit fire for effect right on. So we'll go through the process of successive bracketing once we get done with the call for transmission here. So moving into this, we'll go over what we'll call in. So when we do a call for fire mission, we're gonna say FDC, this is, and then you'll come up with a call sign. We'll say Reaper 27 is our call sign. So Reaper 27, adjust fire, over. So before you say over, you'd say adjust fire, and there's 2 different types of call for fire. One is a grid method where, like I said, you get a grid, and the other is polar where you go off of distance, direction. But today we're gonna focus mostly on grid. So it'll be FDC, this is Reaper 27, adjust fire, grid, over. And then FDC will repeat back to you, Reaper 27, this is FDC, adjust fire, grid, out. And then you'll call up your grid. So I had a grid wrote down here from that map. So we'll say grid, Echo Golf, 99658611, over. And then they'll repeat that grid back to you. And when FDC repeats the grid back to you, make sure that you're listening, because if they call in the wrong numbers, you're going to be in the wrong grid squares, or you could be off your target somewhere you don't want to be. So you have to ensure you listen to that. And then you'll move into your target description if everything is okay and they heard you loud and clear. So another thing is when you're calling in a call for fire mission, you never use the words repeat. You say again. Because repeat, once you call for fire, initially means you're gonna repeat the rounds you already shot off. So they're gonna shoot more rounds if they hear repeat. So you don't say that, you say again. Okay, moving into the target description. So we'll say that we can visibly see 1 T-72, 1 tank, and you wanna give a description of where they are, if they're in the trees, if they're out in the open, if they're engulfed somewhere. But we're gonna say 1 T-72 in the open. And then you'll end your transmission with over. And then FDC will reply and they'll say 1 T-72 in the open, out. And then you'll go into your method of engagement. So this is what you're gonna shoot. So you can leave this up to FDC's discretion of what they want to use, or you can call it in yourself. So I'll just say I'm calling it in myself, and we'll say 2 rounds HE, over. Okay, they'll write that down, they'll get back to you, 2 rounds HE. And then method of firing control, this means you're gonna call in, you can use different commands, so you can say at my command. That means whenever you're ready for them to start firing, they'll wait for your call. So you can use at my command, and there's loads of other ones. You can find all those in Army published documents, but at my command, and then another commonly used one is request splash. So I highly recommend this one because you want to know when your round impacts. Splash is when your round is going to impact. So requesting splash means FDC is going to get back to you and say, hey, your round's impacting. They'll say splash over, you'll repeat with splash out, but I'll get into that. So once you're done with all this transmission, it'll take them a second, but then FDC will send you a message to observer. So your message to observer, it'll be something like, Reaper 27, this is FDC, we use 2 rounds, so fix that, 2 rounds, HE, over, and then you'll pretty much respond with, okay, yep. But one other side note here is they're going to give you a target number. This is why you want your paper ready, because this is specific to your target that you're shooting at. So target number Alpha Bravo 7354, and then you're going to want to write that down. You'll repeat this back to the message observer and make sure you got it. Then you'll move into the actual firing, and they'll say shot over, and you'll say shot out. That means your round has came out, so your round's been shot. Splash over is when the round impacts, like I said before, and then you'll say splash out. So using your M22 binoculars, it'll look something like this. It'll have tick marks on each side. And then it'll have an up and down for elevation. Okay, so your tick marks usually will go in the 10 or 20 meter increments. So we'll say this one's 20, 30, 40, 50. That's the other thing, you never say 30 or 40, you use 50, 40, 30, and then you'd adjust based off of your point. So if your objective's right here, you'd move this here and see how many tick marks it is away. And so you'd say, okay, so I'm going to use a different marker here. So, say your round hits over here, okay? Our objective will be a triangle, and our objective's down here. So, you know that your shot originally hit up and to the left. So what you'd say is, you'd say drop. There's add or drop, means up and down. Add or drop is up and down. So adding is up, dropping is down. Left and right, same way. So you'd say, okay, I'm going right 40, drop 400. This is successive bracketing. So 400 is your initial response to, unless it's way farther off, but if it seems like it's somewhat close to the target, you drop 400. You can drop 800, you can drop way farther if your target is way off. Most times you just call an end of mission if it's way too far off. But we'll say right 40 and then drop 400. So this will move us right 40 and it'll probably move us down under the target. Okay, so drop 400. Now you know you're on line with the target, so you'll cut it in halves. So then you'll add 200. I'll mark these for you. So drop 4, add 2, and then, like I said, you're gonna cut it in half. You're in line with your target already, you moved your left and right factors. So this one doesn't matter anymore. Okay, so now you have to drop. So cut it in half, 200, 100. So we'll say you're right here, not quite on the objective yet. 100. Now, cut it in half. So once you get into 50 meters, that's time when you can say, hey, I'm close enough, fire for effect. So you'll say, add 50, fire for effect. So that should hit right where you're at, 50, fire for effect. and then your rounds will impact, and then you should destroy your target at that point. And then once you end that, you're gonna wanna call in what you saw, what happened. So you'll call in an end of mission transmission. So you'll say something like end of mission, 1 T-72 neutralized, and then you'll just end it with over. And that's pretty much all there is to that. So calling a polar mission is a little different up here, because instead of your grid, I'm not going to touch on this too much, but I'll give you just a general basis, is this will go from your distance from the target, which you'd estimate using your map. You could use your legend on your map, and it gives you your legend scale interval right here, how far away something is, so you can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Copy that on a piece of paper or something, move it around your map. So find your distance that way. And then direction, use your protractor for that. Use it in mils. Make sure to use that GM angle in case you're converting from magnetic to grid. And then your elevation. You can find that using the contour lines on the map to where you're at. So that would be a polar mission. I'm not going to touch on that today, but that's how it would look when you call that in for a transmission. Alright guys, well I hope this lesson kind of helped you go through the process of how to call for fire. I was very excited to have it, and thank you guys.